would
Zhang
tell people.
Weili taking on Joanna Jedrzejczyk. BC, this is... I'm not going to say I hate this fight because I don't. I actually really like it. But I've got a weird feeling about it, and I don't know what... Okay, let me just say this. Number one, their first fight, in my judgment, one of the best fights ever. Easily the best women's fight of all time. I don't even know what would be a close second, to be quite honest with you. That was just incredible. And cards on the table, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I thought Jedrzejczyk won. Now, granted, it was crazy close. You can't be upset that Zhang Weili won. There's obviously a very strong case for her as well. Fair enough. But I did think that Joanna got it. However, while I am glad that she took off all the time that she did, because that was a fucking beating that they both took. But look, you know this as well as I do. Everyone saw it. Dude, Joanna was disfigured from this fight, man. Like, I was actually worried about her future in fighting. So she took a lot of time off. She's bringing in Kovalkiewicz. She's being like an ambassador and an elder statesman in the sport. But this is a tough fight to come back to. Zhang Weili had a tough rebound initially, but she got, I think, her feet under her, even though she lost her against Rose in the rematch, but she put up a very, very strong effort. Where are you on this fight? I'm excited for it, but I gotta be honest, I'm a little nervous about what it might reveal.
I think this fight should be 3 rounds in the end. Even if a couple weeks ago I got excited about the idea of it being 5 as a non-title, it should be 3 rounds to condense the potential danger and damage, although who knows, we can't overlook the idea that this could be a slower, more strategic fight, especially considering what I saw Weili do in the Rose rematch, which was bring in wrestling with Henry Cejudo. But that aside, Luke, I think Dana White saying this would be a number 1 contender fight, more or less, it brought me back to where I needed to be. There's real stakes in this fight. This isn't just, 2 older names and former champions. I'm not saying that's where they're both at in terms of stock, but I don't think you can classify it as, we're only doing this because they have that history. No, Luke, you put the title shot in the line here. I mean, would both deserve it based on a win? I mean, you can argue that, but you're going to make a huge fight, against Esparza regardless. What I'm stuck on in terms of storylines and how I look at this is I'm not sure, who's in the better form at the moment? Because Joanna hasn't fought since that fight, 2 years. But, Luke, she hasn't taken on damage. She seems to have been traveling the world, working on her brand, being a spokesperson, doing a lot of different business ventures, and seems to be thriving and happy and purposely kept herself out until the right fight showed up. She didn't want to fight, contenders on the come up, and she got it. Is it better to be Joanna or be Weili, who is 2 years younger, but does have 2 more pro fights in her career, had 2 fights since they fought, including one a head kick knockout in round 1. I'm not really sure, because I do feel like when they entered their first fight, I felt like Joanna had more tread on the tire. And when you compare what we think their punching power to be, given that fight was fought on even terms, you're sort of like, oh man, I mean, look at Joanna's, look at that thing growing out of her head. I mean, they both will never be the same to a certain degree, but it looked like Joanna took on a lot. Do we really have a firm grasp, because they're closer in age than you think, they're closer in total fights than you realize, just how, even their stocks actually are coming into this, Luke? Because when you look at the betting odds at the moment, you haven't read them yet. I'm not saying what you already said. I don't think. I hope not. Damn. I fell asleep there. Minus 165 for Zhang Weili, plus 140 for Joanna. That kind of tells me, Luke, that Vegas, the general opinion here is we really don't know who's going to win or who's been better off since that first fight. And I don't want to talk this out of being entertaining, because Joanna's saying it will be a war and you're going to need surgeons afterwards and all that. And I don't doubt her hunger. Luke, whatever you want to say about Joanna Champion, she goes after it, dude, when it's time. I mean, seriously. I don't really know who to edge, who's the fresher fighter, and I kind of like that. If you're going to put something big at stake, like a title shot, they both seem to have gone through what they needed to go through to get back to this point, which is 1 win away from a title shot.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the title shot thing in just a second more, because I actually do have some feelings about it. But to answer the question that you raised, who is better prepared for this moment, I think the odds speak to where I'm at on this one, which is I don't know, which is why it's super close. I'm going to lean towards Zhang Weili because, one, even though she lost to Rose, which, coming back from that fight against Joanna was, you were never going to leave that fight the same person you came into it. It's not going to be possible. You cannot sacrifice that much of yourself in an athletic contest this difficult and then be the same person afterwards. Just no chance. However, BC, even though she lost to Namajunas in the rematch, one, she gave it a very good push. She looked to be like in good shape, like she fought well. 2, getting with Cejudo, it didn't pay dividends for the W in that case, but I do think it revitalized her a little bit. I do think it gave her just the push she needed to get back where she was, and so I do think she is probably going to be ready for the moment as best as she can be. While I like the time off for Joanna in terms of her health, that's great, and I like the time off in a sense of get right, don't come back, ease your way into it. So it does have both a health consideration and a competition consideration, but it doesn't have the kind of competition consideration about like, okay, what is she actually capable of? Yes, it's better to take time off and ease your way back into it after that kind of difficult affair, but that is saying something, but not a whole lot. And so I'm going to lean slightly towards Zhang Weili's preparation, given she's just been grinding a little bit more. That doesn't mean anything in terms of what actually might happen, but I understand why the odds are right exactly where they are. Do you have a different sense about tilting the balance maybe in Joanna's favor, if at all slight?
No, I think what I'm really saying is the whole time that Joanna sat out, the 2 years, and we talked about, when will we see this rematch? Will we see it? I was sort of thinking, that was the last stand for Joanna. And every great fighter, Luke, has one left. But usually they have to pour out everything that's left to either just get through it or win it or just look good in defeat, right? But everybody's got one time left. Like Nonito Donaire in the first Inoue fight. We'll get to that shortly. That was it. He poured out the jug one more time. But, the time off, what Weili has gone through started to kind of even it out. But I think when I really look at it with honest glasses on, Luke, I think I've seen Weili evolve in the two, because she had to after losing to Rose by head kick knockout. And, I do wonder how much has Joanna, had done the same, Luke. I mean, Luke, Joanna's ground game has never really been overly offensive, right? Is that fair to say?
Joanna's ground game?
Yes.
Yeah, it's more defensive in nature, although she does have, like, for example, against the fence, like with Jessica Penney, that's not the ground game, but like these clinch scenarios where you're kind of more wrestling than you are just sort of standing apart. She was chewing Jessica Penney up in those spaces. So she does have a good clinch as well. I know that's not quite what you're asking, but
I've seen Weili improve her ground game. I've seen, I don't know what Joanna's done in the 2 years to do that. Sometimes when somebody comes back from that, Luke, especially when they've been grinded, they can come back and look like $1 million. They can also come back and you realize you lost 2 years and the evolution of it. That's something that I think you got to put the advantages to Weili Zhang right now. Also, Luke, I think Weili has more ways to win the fight, and that kind of plays into what I'm saying here with the ground game. It's like,
that's fair.
She's probably a little bit fresher. She's got more ways to win this fight. So I am interested to see what Joanna's strategy is, because if it's balls to the wall as fast as hard as I can, just volume, I think this fight's going to be a little bit different. I don't think it's going to suck all the entertainment out of it. I just think this fight is going to be a little bit more strategic. Because look, we've already seen 5 rounds of trains colliding, and we didn't really learn much, meaning they both were able to give and take. Some strategic change has to come here. And does Jay, big part of the storyline here is, does JJ have one more moment in her, Luke? Do you believe, looking at it, do you believe she could have one more? We say Connor's got one more big win. Does JJ have one more big win in her?
I think so. Again, until we really see, it's very, very difficult to say. But yeah, I think she does. And I'll say this too, which is just a really bizarre thing, dude. Imagine if she does win, right? And Dana White said this was a number 1 contenders fight. Whether or not it should be, whether or not that makes sense, that's what he said. So that's kind of where we are. If in fact she does win, and then she rematches Carla from basically the time when she won the title to begin with, kind of this weird full circle moment, she could, we're very much getting ahead of ourselves, but it's at least conceivable in a real world kind of way. She could recapture the title in the same way she got it the first time, which would be one of the most dramatic recapturing of the titles. I know Carla's was impressive in the sense that there was so much time in between, but the way in which she got it didn't leave a lot of people with warm feelings, for better or for worse. But dude, if Joanna goes in there and wins, it's hard to imagine she'll win that way. And if she recaptured it, dude, can you imagine what the narrative would be on after losing to Zhang Weili, taking 2+ years off, coming back, beating her in the rematch, then beating Carla, who you beat the first time? It would be an insane storyline. But MMA does that all the time.
I know. Could you imagine Joanna as champion welcoming Rose in a trilogy. You know what I mean? I mean, that might get Claudia Goodell out of retirement. I know she's been wanting to have a grappling match with Joanna, but like, yeah, no, that would be very exciting. But I think it'd be hugely exciting for the division because Joanna, there's a ceiling on it, but Joanna's a star and she carries herself like a star. And I think that's been a big part of her being able to achieve on the level she has. But Luke, at the end of the day, though, do you think it's more like we all expect a really close fight because the first one was, but the rematch may be one person winning. Now, let's not say one-sided or dominantly, but much more convincingly. Is it more likely that Joanna adds wrinkles to her striking game and the cadence and the timing and the feinting and the countering and, just kind of outclasses Weili and wins the decision? Or is it the other side where Weili brings the wrestling into it, she lands the harder strikes, she hurts Joanna, and you come out of there going, wow, 4-1 Weili, she's back, she's right. Which one's more likely?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. That's a great question. I really don't know, dude. I really don't know. I will say this. It's something to think about where what if we actually don't, because I think we're expecting this to give us a lot of answers about what it means that Joanna's been away. But like, what if the fight is not boring, but a little slower than the first one, which seems improbable. But let's just say, to your point, a change in the tactical strategy where it's a lot more wrestling-based, clinching-based, that kind of a thing. And Joanna loses 3 rounds to 2, but it's not really some kind of blood and guts affair that the first one was. What would you really say that you learned in a situation like that? I don't really know what the answer would be. So in terms of thinking like what this could look like, my hunch is that it's going to look like the first one, maybe not quite as crazy. Or I don't know, dude. I really don't know. I really fucking don't know. I'm trying to give you an answer here, but I'm kind of just making shit up. I candidly have I am unsure sense of exactly what to expect between these two in this meeting, even if we've seen 25 minutes from them before. Really.
Yeah. Should we start calling like the big four of these strawweight queens? Because we're going to look back at this era, which really was the entire era of this division in the UFC 115, right? Launching in 2014. In the same players that were there then, for the most part, are still here, although we're starting to see them retire or fade away. I mean, is it the big four? I mean, are we going to look back at the Joanna, Rose, Weili, Carla era? I mean, is that fair? Or is it more of a big three, but that's disrespectful because Esparza's a 2-time champion and is your current champion, right?
I think, I think you have to put Esparza into that mix. I mean, I realize that her situation is very different. She was kind of forgotten, but the way in which she won and the first time and then, beating her a second time and getting the title shot to begin with was difficult. Yeah, you can't dismiss her. I know what you're saying. She wasn't a transcendent figure in that way where Zhang Weili beating Jessica Andrade in China was like this big explosive moment. We all know about Rose. We all know about Joanna. Carla doesn't quite have that, but she is relevant by virtue of the other accomplishments that she's had. So it's like 3.5, 4.
And don't forget about Andrade. I mean, Andrade made fun fights with everybody. She won the title for a minute. So, yeah, damn, what a great division. Luke, you know what I'm saying? Hanover, Ohio, get fired up. This division's it's coming Saturday night.